well, we decided to do it later. We didn't want to waste any more precious time. After I headed down the other side of Diamond Head, the rain kicked in again, and my feet were wetter than ever, and I felt some major pain going on the balls of my feet. Uh-oh, what was going on? I had a small blister behind my toes before we started, so I'd put a blister pad on to protect it before we walked. Well, I didn't realize that the sand had gotten in the day before when we were snorkeling, and it was irritating it besides ripping the blister pad off. All of the rain had caused the biggest blisters I'd ever seen. They ran from the tips of my toes to the middle of my arches. I had blisters the size of oranges on the bottom of each foot, several layers deep. Well, I went to pull the blister pad off, and it pulled off the entire blister. So now I had an open wound from the tips of my toes to the arches of my feet. Yes, that big. And I have pictures if anybody wants to see them. I will email them to you. Well, I went to the first aid station, and the doctors told me, no, you have to stop. Just go back to your hotel and rest, and you'll be fine. No, I'm not a quitter. The mantra of quitting is not an option started playing in my head, and it must have played in my head 10,000 times over the next few hours. I kept walking. Every step was painful. Those words went through my head, every single step. And the pain was excruciating. But somehow, before I know it, I was at miles 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13. I had finally hit the halfway point. But I was in the worst pain of my life. Almost. One other thing was more painful, but pretty much the worst pain of my life. Mile 13 was at 5.5 hours. And I still had 13.2 miles to go. There was no way I was accepting an 11-hour marathon time. So somehow, my little engine that could kind of thing kicked in, and I kept going. Well, somehow, in the next 5 miles, I passed literally thousands of people that were walking. And I just kept going and going. I was drinking. They didn't have Gatorade at this marathon. They had this stuff called Amino Vital, which is the Japanese version of Gatorade, but it has a completely different chemical makeup. So I had major intestinal issues after drinking that. So I had the foot issues going on. I had the intestinal issues. Remember, it's still pouring. We're in the middle of a monsoon doing a marathon. But I kept saying quitting is not an option. And at mile 24, I found a place to sit for a few minutes, and I started talking to a police officer, and I kept going in my head, I didn't travel almost 3,000 miles to not finish this. So I got back up, and as I rounded the corner, I saw my coach, Sherry. And, she hugged me and said, okay, let's knock off the pity party and go finish this thing. Well, I'm going to read this last part because I just summarized a whole bunch of what was written on here. We walked and stretched and walked. Forget the pain, just keep walking. Well, 15 to 20 minutes later, I saw the sign that said, you're almost there, 1K to go. I could see the finish line. She grabbed my camera and took off for the finish line. There were so many things going through my head. What I had accomplished that year. The weight loss, 92 pounds. The training with Fountain Grove. The fundraising for Team in Training. Doing a radio show about Team in Training the week before. I was published in a national cookbook. I had a half-page news article written about me. I experienced several losses. My sister in January, and my aunt and my sister-in-law 2 weeks before the marathon. It was a really tough decade, not just year, but decade. I had gone through a lot. And I felt like crossing that finish line. My top lip was quivering. I started crying, and I had thousands of Team in Training people cheering me on. I had people all along the sidelines on each side cheering me on. I knew I was about to finish it. And I crossed the finish line, and it felt like I was closing a huge chapter of my life and starting a new one. So I'm not even going to read the rest of what I have down here. But if you ever get a chance to get up off your couch and try to do a marathon, try it. Even if you know you're not going to finish it, you never know. Get up and try it. Gary, I know you can do this. And anyone else that's Team in Training that was watching this, go team.